And I'm also going to go ahead and screen share so I have that up and then do some introductions.
Oh my gosh.
Gabe, what are you doing? Why are you on the floor?
Being a tiny dragon that was touching under the table.
So a few things, if people would mute their mics tonight, what we're going to try to do, it worked very well last night at Spring Creek Elementary. I helped Dr. DeJong co-host it. And we're going to ask that you ask any questions once I start my overview in the chat box. And then what will happen is once I go over this first slide, Dr. DeJong will read the questions for me and I will take time to answer. I can't guarantee we're going to know all of the answers tonight, but what we have done as an administrative staff over the past few days is we've gathered, and we will gather tonight's questions. We're putting them into one document so that we can compile a larger question and answer document and provide those to all parents at the elementary schools to kind of recap this week. But as I said, Dr. DeJong, I'm going to have him kind of wave his hand. He is here tonight as a co-host too, so he might be popping his thoughts in as well, especially if there's something he may have a little bit more knowledge about than I do. And I'm going to go ahead and move this so that hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. Okay. So before we start tonight, I know that Dr. O'Donnell sent out an email yesterday that was a clarification email. And to talk a little bit about that, we originally offered two types of options this year. We shared with you the virtual academy and then the in-school, possibly going to remote option. When we heard from a lot of parents last week about the possibility of remote from the start that really paralleled what the remote looked like and was part of our in-school with State College teachers. We worked late last week and into early this week to add what Dr. O'Donnell shared out yesterday, and that is the district remote option. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these to really help clarify some things, and then you might want to, if it's not clear enough, ask questions in the chat box so that we can answer those. The other thing I will share is once I go over this will take about 5 minutes. We do have a nurse from the district who can only be with me till 6:30 because Radio Parks is at 6:30. So I will try to get Dr. DeJong to review those questions, and anything that would relate to the health and safety plan, I will have her answer first. But with the 3 schools, the virtual academy is the academy that's on a platform known as Fuel. There was a link in your email that you can look, and you can kind of look at the very basic skeletal view of it, but it is a platform that is mainly asynchronous. And asynchronous means that it's not live. You can really do the work when the work suits you. So if you're a working parent and you want your child to work at night, there'll be more options that they could log on any time of the day to complete their work. So the curriculum is right there. They'll log on to their English. They'll get their assignments from a teacher. They'll be able to complete it and submit it to that platform. Those platforms will be overseen by teachers from the State College Area School District. We can't define what teachers they will be yet. We are looking at different options. And again, once the survey comes in, we're trying to see how many students have enrolled in each of the 3 to determine where our teacher structure is needed to start the school year. So in the virtual academy, you would most likely, if your child chooses that academy, you would have some Zooms per week as some check-ins. You would have a teacher checking in with you, providing feedback, but your child is most likely going to be with other children throughout the district in that grade level. So it's not as much of the homeschool feel as the remote option would be. They already have their Chromebook, and again, I'm looking when I talk about the virtual academy at the green box right to the left. When we added the remote is going to be more like what we had last March through May, but this year will be a more structured schedule with more of an 8 to 3 format. So I don't want you to think if I choose remote, my child is to be expected to be on the computer all day long with a teacher from 8 to 3. There will be breaks embedded in. There is, of course, lunch. The special will occur at a certain time, but teachers will be on and off throughout different times to be actually teaching the reading and the math and the other curricular needs. So they may do a mini lesson and then say, okay, I want you to work on this. And then tomorrow we're going to start with what you worked on and recap and review that before we move on. So the big questions that came in from parents last night were, will my children who select the remote option be with their kids from Easterly Parkway, the kids that they have grown up with at our home school? We cannot provide that answer yet because we don't know the numbers. So if we have 20 second graders who sign up from Easterly Parkway for our remote, most likely we're going to be able to have a teacher that would possibly be from Easterly teaching that group of students. But if we only have 5 second graders and we have 55 that the parents have said, I want them to come and start in school, then those 5 might be with another group from another school. So we don't have the answers of the homeschool teacher, but it would definitely be with a teacher from State College with support, specialist interventions, everything from State College. But it's more synchronous, meaning according to our surveys, lots of parents had suggested, hey, we really wanted more of a schedule. And this would be more of a daily schedule with multiple times per day that they might see the teacher for more of a live lesson. And they would have a special every day at a certain time too, that they would log on, get some work from the special, and then again have time to go and do some things on their own. We will be posting those schedules soon. Our Ed Model team worked on them today, and they are, Deirdre Bauer is working to put them together and get them up to our website so you can kind of take a look at them to see what we're thinking for the remote schedule. Then the neighborhood school is, hey, we are optimistic that in August you are going to come in those doors the first day. We will have a very solid health and safety plan with the 6-foot distancing, the spots on the floor to help us out. But they would, if we can, if schools are still open, we would start in school with a structured schedule. And if for some reason we would reach that the COVID numbers increase to an alarming rate that it is deemed not fit for schools to stay open, then those classes would go remote, and they would go back into that remote learning, very similar to the remote that would have started at the beginning of the year with that 8 to 3 schedule. You will see in the neighborhood school, we realize there could be extended absences. If that is the case, just like if you take a 10-day trip or if you have gotten sick in the past and are out, you would still work with the child's teacher from Easterly Parkway that you were assigned to at the beginning of the year to work that out. So there is some fluctuation in amongst them that if you start out in one school, people are saying, can I switch? We're going to be looking at certain times and availability to do that. To be able to say, yes, we can switch you at any time, it would just be too difficult. So we would plan and work with you. Right now, we're saying at the end of each trimester. So in November would be a great time. And then again in February, March, with the understanding that we realize it could be sooner than that if it worked into the current structure of the teachers that we have at home and the teachers that are in school. So hopefully that clears that up. Dr. Dijon, can you think of anything with this graph that I missed?
I think you got it covered, Mrs. Yoder.
Okay. Well, then at this point, I am going to stop this screen share and I will work to answer questions. So did Lois join us, Todd?
Lois did, and we have our first health and safety question.
Perfect.
What is the protocol if/when a case of COVID happens in the classroom who is quarantined?
We do have our protocol. It is in the health and safety plan, which you all were shared by Dr. O'Donnell. So go out and look at that so you know. Everything's out there. It's pretty explicit on how we're going to manage all that.
And that's the only health and safety question we have. We have another one, which is, Will teachers be using Zoom as the primary mode of connection in the remote option? Will they be able to use breakout rooms?
So there will definitely be utilization of breakout rooms. We, again, are really looking at how many people choose that remote option. We will have paras to support those teachers or specialists or, I'm sorry, not specialists, but interventionists that can use that. So yes, there will be breakout rooms. Zoom is currently our platform. We are exploring other options that would make it easier to record. But I do still believe that Zoom will be available through this year, but we may have an additional one that makes it much easier to record in case a child misses a lesson and wants to go back and review it.
Okay, Lois, would you be able to just kind of give a summary of the protocol for COVID if it happens in a classroom who's quarantined?
I could. It's the flow chart, so it depends on what we see and the questions that we ask. So in this environment right here, it's going to be difficult to answer that, but I want everybody to know parent-wise that they are coming up with a parent handbook that we're working on, and that flow chart will be included in there. Things have got to happen. I'm not sure if this is the time to talk about it, but one of the recommendations from the CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health is that for someone who has been exposed to COVID, it has to be the 15-minute window for more than 15 minutes without a mask. And like I said, this is a hard place to try to do that without visually showing it. So my advice to everyone is please go out to that plan. It's on the district website. Go down through. You will see the protocol for isolation and quarantine and just read through it yourself. Then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your school nurse or reach out to Jean Canals about that.
Lois, I think another one is saying, is regular testing occurring? And if so, how frequently?
We are not doing testing. We do not have the resources to do that. We are referring to your primary care provider for that.
All right, Danielle, has the district considered beginning everyone in virtual/distance/something online for the first 30 days or so, especially given the change of dynamics in Center County with students returning?
So at this point, we have all three options. We have many parents and families that really want to have their kids come to school. If we can safely open schools on the first day, we will do that, knowing that families that are not comfortable with that do have the option. And I will say, what your choice is with the surveys that have come out, we realize is preliminary. And as you guys watch the numbers, we will have a date that if that needed to be changed. But otherwise, our goal really is to open up those schools on the first day of school.
Mrs. Yoder, is there a cap on how many students can safely be in each classroom?
Ed Poprick has been going around from school to school. I will be honest, Easterly has not been done yet. I went to North Carolina, so I am not attending the school for 2 weeks, but we will be meeting and they map out with an architect how many students can safely be in that classroom with adult staff, and they give us that number. So we will have better numbers, but they are working currently pretty much every day going school to school so that we can prepare those class sizes.
Danielle, what is the expected Chromebook use for lower grade levels for the in-school option, specifically first grade?
So in school, one of the items you'll see is we are going to encourage parents to, Chromebooks will be coming home every night and they will be returning to school, which is new for kindergarten through 5th grade. In school, in those first several weeks, because there's a lot of thought that we could possibly have to close at some point, we would like to prepare them and get them practicing on whatever platform the teacher is using. We are going to be sticking with Seesaw and for the older grades, some Google Classroom. But during the school day in school, again, it will be it is going to be more in-person work with some computer usage for some of the programs that we have. So I don't really have an exact number, but it really our goal those first several weeks is to build a community to help students feel safe, build that culture of love and learning. and teach those younger students how to manipulate the computer if indeed we have to go back to remote for an extended period of time.
Mrs. Yoder, this one is pertaining to special education. So understanding special ed and learning support will be with a SCASD teacher across the platforms. Will learning support be implemented in a remote and virtual class, in remote and virtual classrooms?
Yes, there will be a special education teacher or more, as you said, in all three options. And depending on numbers, but they will follow the IEP guidelines and work with the families and with the classroom teachers to provide those interventions.
What percentage of school time for virtual and remote will be off screen? Will teachers emphasize projects without the screen?
Absolutely. And I can't, unfortunately, talk a lot about the virtual academy. The virtual academy is the platform that's more asynchronous. So you are going to be doing especially some work that you would need to submit through them. That may be computer. I really can't talk the hours, but when we're working in our teams for the remote model, we're really looking at, just like we would do in the classroom, a 10-minute mini lesson, and then students off the computer and, you know, go ahead and do your work, either if you feel best on the computer, but paper pencil. If you've read anything about the learning boxes have supplies in them that are paper, pencil, markers, things like that, so that students can do projects, whether they are in the remote setting or whether they are in the in-school setting.
Mrs. Yoder, if I could add, I think just recently, and check in on the website, I believe the Fuel is adding like percentages for each kind of grade level. And obviously for the primary, it's going to be less screen time. And it progresses up a little bit as you move into the intermediate grade levels up to 5th grade. So it'll be less to more. I think our curriculum director supervisor, which I spoke to about 20 minutes before our meeting, is going to be adding that, because that was one of our questions that came out of Spring Creek Elementary School last evening. Sorry.
Thank you.
How are teachers addressing non-compliance of masks and other behaviors? So this could be a Mrs. Yoder and Mrs. Lois question, Thompson question.
So I don't know if you've read Dr. O'Donnell's email, and I want to specify our take is that the expectation is masks will be worn by faculty and by students. We will work with students to help prepare them. I don't ever want it to be looked that we're going to call the first time a child takes his mask off. It's not going to be like that. It'll be some teaching. But the goal is to have masks so that people feel protected. That is what our health and safety plan is saying. And also the 6-foot distancing, we will be working with in all areas of our building. I will say at recess, once the students are, or if we're outside for other reasons, if we can get them 6 feet apart, they will have the opportunity to take those masks off. We want them to be able to have that. So we do have things set up for that, but we're not, we want to work with the students and help everybody feel successful.
Lois, I believe this one would be for you. Will there be daily temperature checks for the in-school option?
That is not the recommendation at this time. The recommendation is to temp check on symptomatic kids and faculty and staff only. Initially, we had discussed that, but again, we just do not have the resources to do that.
Danielle, what kind of assessment and feedback will students receive from individual teachers in the virtual option? If students pick the virtual option, how often will they have interactions with their peers? And then third, are there any plans to track math and reading in any of the 3 options? And I can read those one by one again if you want.
So again, the virtual option, there will be assessments. I cannot tell you a lot about that, but there will be also, not as many check-ins and daily live lessons as you are going to see in the remote setting. So yes, there will be an assessment, but it might be read something and answer 5 questions and submit that. So think of the virtual really as a more of a cyber program that's really individualized and kind of doing at your own pace, knowing though that there are State College teachers checking in and working through things. So As far as assessments in the remote, we are talking about that in Ed Model. That's one of the pieces of it. And how can we do formative assessments that inform our instruction? Do we want to do, work with students one-to-one? I do not see us giving the large assessments that are like the 6-7 page papers. I'm not saying that that won't happen, but really more small, quick, formative assessments so that we are finding out if they grasp the material and if we can move on. As far as math grouping, really for the first unit, and we want to get kids in school and we want them to be successful, our plan is to keep everybody together, do some assessments, figure out where students are, and then begin to see what we want to do. But we are working with Jonathan Klingeman, who is our gifted teacher, to figure out how everything works with students who may be working at a grade level above, and that has been part. Todd, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you got to cover it. The virtual piece, like Danielle shared, there'll certainly be Zoom meetings with those kiddos that families that choose to be in that platform. So there will be interactions. There possibly could be small groups and conferring too. If kiddos are getting it, grasping materials or concepts or whatever, teachers will be interacting, but it'll be, like Danielle said, more asynchronous. So. There's a question. Thank you, Mr. Vint, for your positive comments. And then the other question is about the firmness with math, Danielle. Will there be firmness with math, second grade or kindergarten coming in? Will we be, emphasizing the importance of wearing the mask, but what could be the consequences for a kindergarten student that is either having trouble keeping the mask on or is just done with it at hour 6 of the school day?
So again, we are a restorative, positive school system. We realize that there's going to be a teaching curve for students. Our goal is to not call a parent and say your child took your mask off. We want to work with them. We are going to work very, very hard those first several weeks building a culture and helping kids understand. We have a trauma team that we're working with at Easterly Parkway, and even talked about breathing exercises that we could do daily to help the kids learn how to breathe and be calm and learn. But remember the desks, the students are going to be 6 feet apart. So the teachers will be working, and if a student really is not feeling comfortable with a mask and we have staff, we're going to have places available that we can take that child that he is distanced and work with them. So it will be a work in progress, just like many of us with our if we're wearing masks, learn to kind of build stamina with them. The expectation is that they're going to be on, while at the same time we are teachers. We are going to help them work through learning how to keep them on and getting comfortable to them.
And we'll have breaks too throughout the day where folks can go outside. If you're 6 feet, you can outside, you can take your masks off. So teachers will be, and then obviously over lunch, also that they'll be able to take the masks off during that time period. Here's a question we've been grappling with, Mrs. Yoder. Will there be Penn State students who student teach in the classrooms? Are there any safety measures we are asking them to follow?
It's very difficult. Everybody saw the pictures of downtown State College, and that actually was brought up to me in several emails, and we want to protect our children. So we have re-brought that up to the district. People asked me, they had heard that the student teachers were coming back, and that was the original plan. We are now looking at other options and looking at guidelines that we can put in place if they do, but also asking right now, is it better to place them in one of the virtual or remote academies? So that is a high priority right now to work with Penn State and determine. There has not been a defined answer at this point. But as Penn State and State College works together, we will have something in place hopefully in a few weeks regarding that.
Can students swap between remote learning and virtual academy at any time, or just at the trimester times?
So really, again, it's not going to be necessarily easy because of our staffing that we're going to put place in August, according to the numbers, to be able to transitioning people back and forth. So for now, we're saying those trimesters, we want you to really give it a time, give it that first trimester to try, and then make those switches. If somebody requested and it looks like we have multiple people that want to request that, we will come together as a district or as an elementary principal team and look at numbers and determine what we can do. But right now we're really trying to say, whatever you choose, we'd like you to choose for the first trimester.
So Danielle, this is another question pertaining masks. I understand masks are mandatory with few exceptions offered. Can we request a classroom with 100% compliance?
It is my understanding at this point in time that parents will be notified if there will be a student that is unable to wear a mask. But we are really looking at lots of different options, the face shields and different things like that, with the plans, working with doctors of students who would not be able to wear a mask. But right now, Dr. O'Donnell's plan is to let parents know if there would be a child that is in the class that does not wear a mask.
If I can jump onto that too, guys, we did have a meeting on Monday where we discussed those kids who are going to have issues like that. Now, it's not going to be across the board because it can't be. There's always going to be that exception. But what Dr. O'Donnell told us is that if there are kids that are in that category, his recommendations that those kids either go virtual or remote if it's possible. It's not ideal for everybody, but that's what was said on Monday.
Thank you. My students struggled heavily with Zoom meetings in particular during remote learning this spring. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I got an
Now you're breaking up.
unstable, try to not move. Because in my house or out on my porch, it's both ways. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
My students struggled heavily with Zoom meetings, in particular during remote learning this spring. Are we able to work with teachers to minimize the amount of time she will spend in Zoom meetings?
Yeah, again, that's our goal with a structured schedule. We would like to do small mini lessons and then say, hey, go to work, but then also provide opportunities if students want to be on with an adult, to have that. We're not going to have that all day long, but there would be opportunities if we're finding that a child needs, or a small group remotely needs somebody. Hopefully that's where we'll use our professionals and our other itinerants to work with that. But our goal is not be on Zooms for hours at a time. We understand, especially at the primary grade levels, we want them doing things.
Will there be math grouping for older grades with the remote option?
I believe so. Again, we're going to look at assessments and if they're at what groupings work. Todd, do you want to add? I mean, it's just not something that we've come to a definite decision on.
Yeah, I think in the first unit or within the first unit or first 9 weeks, I think what we're trying to do is avoid a lot of excessive movement through the halls and switching of kids and the cross-contamination piece. So I think early on, we're not looking at grouping kiddos who are having a high, or a more challenging math group. I think we're trying to avoid some of that movement initially. And I think we're going to continue to monitor that and revisit that. The next question, Mrs. Yoder, is what will recess look like if kids can't use the playground? Will they be able to play with balls, soccer, football, basketball, etc.?
So Todd's breaking up right now.
I'm sorry, it was about recess. Can you hear me?
I did. I got the recess. So
what will recess look like?
The equipment, at this point, we are not going to be able to use. If we get to a point that it can be opened and we feel that it is safe, we would. But otherwise, when they are 6 feet distance, I would see that balls could be used. We're going to have plans in place to sanitize items. but it will be it'll be games that involve 6 feet of distance of the students so that they don't have to wear their masks. But we will find lots of opportunities. The nice thing about Easterly is we have that large playground area that we really can space kids apart, and we want them to be active during that time.
The next question is, will kindergarten classrooms also be arranged with 6 feet of separated desks?
Yes, they will be. I've been meeting with our kindergarten teachers, and they are optimistic. They realize that kindergartners may not be sitting in desks all day. They have some other ideas with standing beside, or we are going to take kids in the fall outside as much as we can and have some designated areas to get them out. But they will be in the same situation as the other grade levels with regards to that 6 feet distance.
I saw the governor made some new guidelines today. One of them was less than 25 people for indoor gatherings. My guess is that wouldn't affect Easterly very much, as all classes will be under 25, correct?
That is correct. And like I said, right now, it looked like the original plan was 20, but we're finding out some classes may be smaller than that. I did continue to listen. There was a pediatrician on that news thing. I caught it at the very end, who was talking about opening schools and believing that we had really solid plans in place, and kind of commended the different things that have been put in place. So it sounds like we should be in good shape following the protocols and health and safety plans that we have worked on.
So Lois needed to jump off, our school nurse. She's going to the PFE meeting, which starts at 6:30, and she said to please check with the building nurse if we needed any further clarification on some of those health and safety things. But Mrs. Yoder and I will do our best to answer any of those too, because we're familiar with them. The next question is there any way that students who are remote could still occasionally participate in small group learning / experiences?
Is that for remote, Todd?
Yeah, is there any way that students who are remote
Yes.
could still occasionally participate in small group learning?
Absolutely. We are very optimistic about the remote and doing the small groups. Again, we are making sure our platforms have breakout rooms, but our title teachers have been working, our IST teachers, our special education teachers, to talk about a model that really supports that small group and how can we do breakout rooms so that they could be working with people and on targeted skills. So yes, that will happen.
When will we find out classroom assignments for the in-person option? I would love extra time to learn who is my child's classroom and connect with them ahead of the school year.
So a couple of things. One, our back to school night is going to be before the start of school and will be virtual, but we have tentative class lists right now. However, we can't provide that information because we really need to regroup with the survey data and figure out who is truly going to be at Easterly in person and what kind of remote classrooms do they look like. Is it an all Easterly group or is it an Easterly, Spring Creek, and Radio Park group? So once we have those surveys, we are going to be calling people that haven't completed the survey later this week and next week to try to get as close to 100% as we can, and then begin to build. I will tell you though, keep in mind that we also realize that parents in August, there'll be a deadline pending the COVID numbers if people want to kind of switch. So this is preliminary. So normally we have them to you by August. As soon as we can get class lists, we will let the parents know who their child's teacher is. We of course can't share with you who the classes are.
Danielle, if PSU goes remote, how likely is it that the school community will follow?
Again, I am optimistic that if we can open schools, we are going to open those schools the first day for those who want to come in school.
And to piggyback on that, Danielle, I think Dr. O'Donnell and all of us are really committed to opening our doors up, barring an order from Governor Wolf. That seems to be the understanding. Are there any plans for band, orchestra, choir for next year? What about the remote virtual options?
So we are checking. I'm sure if any of you have read the literature, band and music really present some obstacles. We are hoping for music to get kids outside if anything were to occur, but we realize that there are stipulations they have with certain instruments because of the air that comes out of them. So we are talking about plans. Carolyn Triazzi, our instrumental teacher, has reached out to us. Todd and I are part of the specialist group Ed Model, and we are checking in to see what options are for remote instrumental and if there are instrumental options with the virtual academy. And I didn't have that one answered, but again, we're working hard to put some plans in place of how that could look.
Will the kids in school be asked every day before class if they have any fever or symptoms related to COVID?
You guys are asking great questions, so thanks. I do not believe so. Again, I know that we didn't go with the temperature check, but our teachers are pretty used to looking for signs when students come in. We will have what's known as an isolation room this year. If anybody would come in and be not feeling well, they can be checked out from the nurse. If there is a fever, they go into the isolation room, parents are called. So again, that health and safety plan really outlines, and our teachers will be instructed on that, what the process is.
And I know too, we're asking all families and parents too to be mindful of that before sending, to the school, if they're not feeling well, or, to touch base and check in with them too, if they're exhibiting any symptoms, not to send them, right? If students choose in virtual events for their local elementary.
I lost you, Todd.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just got a little bar up on my thing that said connections unstable. I'm going to try to stay still. If students choose the virtual academy or remote options, will they still be able to participate in virtual events for their local elementary?
So if you're, I might, and please, if this question was yours and I don't answer it clearly, just kind of unmute yourself and ask. I would think if the PTO does any event and you are part of Easterly Parkway, the PTO is going to say, yes, be part of our virtual event. We want to keep that community. You guys are an incredible community. I listened to the Spring Creek, and they are very proud of their school too. So we are very proud of the schools that we are part of. We want to continue to build that, because my hope is that someday soon we will all be back under, under a brick and mortar school. And if it's not this year, definitely next year. So yes, you and Todd, I would, if you think I'm wrong on this, but you guys are Easterly Parkway parents and students. So when I send announcements out, my plan is to keep you all on that school messenger list, even if you are remote or in school or virtual for this school year. So you would still be receiving the updates that we send out.
So, Ms. Yoder, as of right now at 6:40, there are no more questions in the chat box. So,
wow.
Proceed how you desire.
So, what I'd like to do is open it up. If you have more questions, put them in there. I would definitely like to stick around for anybody that would have questions. And Todd will continue to monitor. But if I answered enough and you're satisfied, you can certainly log off, and I would be able to stick around and answer any individual questions.
Hold on, we have, Kristen, I apologize. Is there one, I'm trying to look for the question that wasn't answered. I think, Danielle, just to address if students choose the virtual academy or remote options, will they still be able to participate in virtual events for the local community? We just answered that one. Do you have a Kristen, I apologize. Is there another one I missed? Can you unmute yourself and ask it? If I might have missed it.
Yeah, I can ask it.
Christine, I apologize.
I go by Chris anyway. So my question is about when parents are making choices about virtual versus remote versus whatever, some of the choices that have to be made are economic, right? And so I'm wondering what procedures are put in place to support children who usually benefit from reduced or free lunches during the school year, who may need to or want to choose one of the remote options?
We checked that today. So a lot of that, we want to be able to support you. And that was a question that I asked in admin today. It's going to come down to federal government guidelines, but Megan Shaper is already on it. She is going to reach out and see how that will work. I know that State College has the fund. We had an email sent out to us today, again, sharing that link because people have asked to give again. So we will still be a support to families. I can't give you the answer about lunch right now because a lot of that is through the government and how the government proceeds with how they fund those lunches.
Thank you. It's risk factors for our teachers.
Can you repeat, Todd?
Do we have additional plans to protect teacher-to-teacher transmission, since that's one of the biggest risk factors to our teachers?
So our teachers will also be expected to wear masks. They may be able to say hi to somebody walking down the hall, but they are really going to follow, as am I, as is Dr. DeJong, the same expectations as the students. So we will have even specialized areas that only so many can eat. We're not going to let 20 people go into a faculty room and eat. That expectation of the 15 minutes is really going to stand for them as well. We want to protect everybody as much as we can, and they will play a key part in the success of keeping our doors open.
Danielle, will classrooms be informed if a child has symptoms before testing may come back?
That is in the health and safety plan. And it is, well, we just reviewed this one. So I apologize that I can't think off the top of my head, but I think symptoms, not necessarily, because we don't know, but I could be wrong on that. I would have to go back and check that health and safety plan with what that says. So there's been back and forth. But if there are positive cases, yes, but I'm not sure about somebody that got sent to the nurse and then just gets sent home.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to say if they've been identified with it, but because fever or sniffles or, that is so general, but I know that if there's an identification, that would be the case. But yeah, I think we need to change over the next, it could potentially change for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So.
Right.
Ms. Schroeder, if your kid has some sickness symptoms, COVID or otherwise, and they are sent home for extended periods of time, will the remote option be available until symptoms or tests are cleared?
So that's where I said we're going to work with your child's teacher and look at what absolutely. So, but how can we, if they have one of our teachers and they end up saying, I'm going to be out for a week or 2 weeks, we would really like to keep them connected with that classroom, again, to keep that culture. So not sure how that would look. Now, if we're working with the parents and they're saying, I don't plan to send them back because it was a scare, then we would work with you on an individual cases to determine, how do we move you to the remote? It could be a switch of teachers at that point. But otherwise, we really want to keep you connected with the class that you start with.
Danielle, is the ventilation system?
So, Todd, I was losing you, but I think I heard ventilation system.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Is the ventilation system being updated or enhanced?
We are blessed that we have windows. So we are talking, if you've read a lot, at the end of the days, our doors will be open so kids don't have to touch that. If we can get the windows open for air circulation, we're going to do that. And they have increased some of the airflow to the maximums within all of the schools to really increase the circulation. So yes. And again, we are, I have an optional staff meeting tomorrow, and we're going to talk about different areas of the school that student or teachers can begin to think, where can I take my class that I can safely distance them and learn outside as well, while the weather is nice. That, of course, wouldn't occur on days that it's rainy or you can't get outside.
So, Mrs. Joe, as of right now at 6:47, there's no more questions in the chat box. What solutions have been made for connections, difficulties for, what solutions have been made for connection? Will this affect attendance?
So as you can see, and actually I had to come to my sister's house because my connection at my house in recent weeks has been horrid, and I did not want to cut out like Dr. DeJong is today. So we, if you are having connectivity issues, I am going to say, I'm going to take the stand that no, if the child is able to complete the work, we are looking at, yes, we want to be able to take attendance this year. And yes, we want to say this is mandated learning. At the same time, you are not going to be facing consequences because your internet was down or you had those connectivities. That's really why we want to be able to record our live lessons, because we realize that's going to happen. We also realize if there's suddenly you guys are working from home and your child is, there's going to be a higher rate that you might not be able to get your child on that day. So we are going to continue to work with all families.
All right, we've had some positive thank yous. Any other questions? Handle the rest of there's 11 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I will say this before we close. The best thing you can do is if you have questions or something's not making sense, email me. We did kind of chuckle. I normally in the summer I can be on email like that, and this summer, just because we have a lot's changing, I've gotten a little bit behind. But reach out. If you call the school, those calls are being transferred to my phone, so I do get those messages and I can call you back. In some cases with families this week, I've said, can we pick up the phone and call? It's just an easier conversation so that my words don't get misconstrued. But asking is the best thing you can do. It is ever changing. I'd love to tell you, hey, this is exactly how it's going to start. But as you said, I mean, if you look at Governor Wolf's address tonight, he just kind of tightened Pennsylvania. So we are going to do all we can to open those schools, but we really want you to choose the option that is best for you and your family to start the school year, and then work with us if something's not working. But I will stay on and continue to answer any questions, or if anybody has individual questions, we will stay on. But otherwise, thank you so much for logging in. Hopefully I was able to answer some questions, and I hope you have a great night and enjoy this weather.
Remote learners can continue to build relationships with peers within the Easterly Parkway community.
I would certainly hope so.
Did you hear that? I'm sorry. It's the last question.
Yep, I did. I would really hope so. And again, if we can have classrooms that have the Easterly classroom, and then at least those Easterly, you'll have that connection in remote. But I know our teachers have been talking too about partnerships. So I would think, that there could possibly be other ways with the in-school versus the remote to keep those connections going.
You mentioned something about 15 minutes referring to the lunches. Would you mind going over this again?
Oh no. Students are going to get 30 minutes of lunch. If we can hold it outside, great. If not, they will not be wearing their masks, but they will be expected to stay at their desk. When I said the 15 minutes, it's that 15-minute of close contact that they believe is the max you can be near somebody to pass. So teachers will still get 30 minutes of lunch. Students will still get 30. But a teacher cannot work with a small group for more than 15 minutes before having to move away as part of the safety plan. So that is what I meant by the 15 minutes. So if two teachers want to talk during their plan period, we're going to say to them the same thing we would say to the students is really watch that 15 minutes, talk or stay the 6 feet distance. But if you're in a smaller group, we're kind of watching that time. And that is what the team with the epidemiologists and everybody have worked through, that they're saying small groups can occur for about 15 minutes, but then it's got to be separated. But lunches will be 30 minutes. They will not be in the cafeteria. They will most likely be in the classrooms or be held outside.
And Danielle, I know you didn't, I know you're not checking email. I just had a pop-up, but it pertains to one of the questions earlier about amount of time that kiddos would be spending online in the virtual. K1, 30% online, 70% offline. 2 to 4 is 45% online, 55% offline. And 5th grade would be 70% online and offline. And that information will be on the website and the links there regarding the ed model, the ed model platforms.
Todd, is that for Fuel? Is that the virtual academy, or is that going to be both?
Yes. No, that's right now. That's the Fuel.
Thank you.
Will there be any small group learning with the in-school learning?
Yes. A lot of times shields may be used. I know that like the plastic shields will be placed in school psychologist room, our title teachers and special ed. But there will also be, again, we'll have to look at areas of where they can go, and then they will have a whole sanitized process, but there will be able to be small groups occur. It is a 15-minute max though, and we will still do all we can safety-wise to keep the students socially distanced.
Another question popped up regarding those percentages. Are these percentages similar for remote as well, or just for virtual? Did you hear that?
I did. I just don't have the answer. I would like to say that they are most likely going to follow that. We do not want kids on a computer all day long. As adults, I'm sure you guys have experienced the eye strain. So it's more about teaching, getting the content in, but letting them go out to explore and learn off the computer, but have supports around if the time comes that the child needs it. Anything?
No more questions in the chat right now.
Okay. So again,
6:54.
thank you all for coming. Todd and I will stick around. We've actually had 2 very great nights. I just appreciate you logging on. We were nervous about this, but we've got through, and hopefully we will be able to continue to answer your questions and get more defined answers as the weeks go by.
Hey, I'm sorry. One parent said about the percentages again. I can try to read those here real quick.
If you read them, I'll open up the chat and put them in the chat box.
Okay, go ahead. I'll read them. And again, they're going to be they'll be on the link for the ed model platforms that have been sent out. So K1 is 30% online, 70% offline. And these are estimates, right? So it's going to be based upon your kiddo too, because each kid learns at different paces, but this is ballpark. 2 to 4 is 45% online, 55% offline.
Hang on, 45% online. Okay.
And then 5th grade is 70% online, 30% off. So like an example is if a 3rd grade, if a student is in 3rd grade, they will have 3 hours online, 2 to 3 roughly of offline activities. Developmentally, students are not advised to be online 100% of the time, as Danielle said. In grades K4, which we have built our content around. So, so yeah, just, and again, the nice thing about that is it's asynchronous in that a kiddo's not going to sit there for a 30% of the time, up to 70% of the time, just looking at a screen. That's the nice thing about the asynchronous piece is that you can work for a half hour and then take a half-hour break and then come back and work another half hour or whatever the case might be, whatever suits your schedule.
Anything else, Todd?
No more questions in the chat box. There's a lot of thank yous, so we thank yous. So, and kudos to you and your leadership, Danielle. Oh wait, here's another one. Given that so many That's okay. It's good. We're good. So given that so many kids will hopefully not be on the bus, need more bike racks, and can we use them?
That is a great question, because our bike racks do get filled. I am definitely going to ask that one to Ed and get that on the list, to find out. And if we can utilize them, what does the process have to be? Where can we store those bikes, so that the kids feel safe too? So great question. I don't know the answer, but we will get answers to that so parents know.
And Mrs. Yoder, a parent asked, do you need anything from families to help support you? Thanks for all you've done.
Oh, well, thank you. We don't. It's like I said, every day is a new day, and it's just kind of like you guys are dealing with too. So we are excited, and optimistic about getting kids back that want to come back, but we really want to support and think it's equally important to offer the remote and the virtual academy. And I think the biggest takeaway from tonight is I want to get a message out to all parents saying no matter what option you choose, you're still Easterly Parkway students and parents. And the time will come that we can be back together again and continue to do our community stronger. And you will still be on those messages. That's very important for me to know. And we can still find times to come together in a virtual way and keep that community built. So thank you for bringing that up. And we will continue to work together on that. We just really support the administrators talk today. The positivity of the parents has been overwhelming and has really helped us on days that we just weren't sure that we wanted to look at one more thing the next day. So thank you for all you guys have done.
Danielle, how are teachers feeling about the transition back? What are we doing to support teachers' concerns? Are we going to be able to hear our teachers' concerns?
I think so. We have teacher representatives on a lot of committees. Again, a lot of us have been holding optional staff meetings either monthly or every other week. We take those questions and their concerns and we add them to an administrative document so that we can stand united as an administrative team, and give equal answers. We have some teachers that are like, we need to get back. And we have other teachers that are like, I'm not sure that I can come back. And we are trying to be really respectful of those families too, or those teachers too. So everybody is really at a different place. And we want to work with everybody to get them comfortable for the start of the school year.
And then we have another comment. Eagles, Eagles.
That's right. So thanks so much, guys. If there's nothing else, have a great evening. I appreciate you hanging in there for an hour, and keep looking for those updates. And if you haven't completed that survey, please take the time to do so.
So, Mrs. Yoder, there's a comment on here. Thank you. We are so grateful for your thoughtful and intentional leadership in our district. So good job.
Yeah. Just like, now I know how you felt. So I do see we have two more people on. Do you guys have, oops, one more. Do you have any questions we can help you with?
Nope, just thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate you logging in.
I really appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, thank you. We
Good
missed you
night.
guys.
Hey, so